Hey, Ciara Gaglio, and welcome to the Tick Bootcamp podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, we are blessed to have you on this beautiful Friday afternoon. So, Ciara, I understand you're a fellow New Yorker.
I am. I was born in upstate New York and I live in the city now almost 15 years.
All right, so we're gonna have to apologize to our listeners because they're gonna have three New Yorkers on the podcast, and of course, we speak a different brand or dialect of English than most of the rest of the world. So we do need to apologize in advance. So it sounds like you must speak better English than Matt and I because we're Long Islanders.
Oh, okay. I have a lot of Long Island friends, so I
Uh,
understand it.
So, Ciara, talk to us a little bit about what you do.
I'm a graphic designer, so I work for myself and do freelance, and I've worked for hospitals, entertainment, nightclubs, restaurants, beauty estheticians, plastic surgeons, you name it. So I do a lot of just everything. I'm like a one-stop shop basically for design, and then I also do my own art, and I have my own merch that I sell. So just doing that mostly.
All right, so you're all around artistic, creative, who promotes the businesses of many of the folks that you represent.
Yeah, pretty
All right,
much.
so you did share with me offline that you, or I guess online, that you grew up upstate New York. So how long were you upstate New York before you came downstate and moved to New York City?
I was in upstate like my whole childhood, and then I went to school at Manhattan College, which is in the Bronx. And right
I'm
after,
familiar with it. My oldest daughter graduated from
oh,
Manhattan, so she's a Jasper as well.
that's so funny.
Yes,
Yeah, it was a good time, good school.
great school.
Right after college, I was just like, oh, I want to live in the city. So then I moved to the city right after that, which is in 2010. So I've been here ever since. I've kind of gone around the boroughs, tested them out, and I've landed in Queens now. This is my sweet spot. But I go upstate all the time. My family is still up there, and sometimes I just need a break from, the concrete jungle. So
Yeah, so what was your childhood like upstate New York specifically? What was your outdoors life like? And what did you know about ticks and tick diseases, either from your family, from experiences in your community, or from your educational experiences?
I was very outdoors as a child because I went to a Montessori school, it was on a farm basically. So we were planting potatoes, we were tapping trees for sap, and, you know, a lot of animals. There was a lot of animals involved. But I had never heard of Lyme disease growing up. Like it was not a thing. I had probably, a few ticks on me, but it was just like, yep, you pick it off and then you go about your day. I had dogs my whole life, and the dogs would have ticks on them, but it was like just not a thing. It was like, ew, there's a tick, but there was no like medical scare around it. So I didn't know much of anything, and my family didn't either.
So, did you have any folks in your community with Lyme disease or anyone who is suffering from tick disease? I mean, do you recall, even knowing that the disease existed?
Not until I was like a little bit older. I think when I was in my teens, my father was dating someone who had Lyme disease, and my dad actually ended up getting Lyme disease shortly after that. But again, it was not like this big thing. Like he's like, oh, I have Lyme disease from a tick, but I took antibiotics and I'm fine. So that was pretty much all I knew about it. And she also said the same thing. I didn't find out till later in life, like as I am now, that she had chronic Lyme and still has it. So back then, it was just like you take antibiotics and you're good to go, at least in my experience.
All right. So you're growing up in the Lyme Belt. You're upstate New York, and for folks who are, from either other parts of the country or international listeners, and we have many of those. Um, Upstate New York is a very rural community, and there are a lot of outdoor activities that young people participate in. And despite the life in the Lyme Belt and all the ticks around, you had absolutely no training or experience that would allow you to identify ticks as a threat or Lyme disease as a threat to your health.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
And even though there were people in your direct family, your dad and your dad's girlfriend who were sick, your perspective on Lyme disease was that it was an acute disease and it was
Yeah.
something that was easily treatable and take some antibiotics for some window of time, something we all have done many times, and it's not a big deal. All right, so. You did share with me that you had been bitten by ticks many times. If you were to estimate how many times you found ticks on you, how many times did you find ticks on you that were just crawling on you and hadn't yet bitten you, and how many times you recall having discovered a tick or someone else discovering a tick that was embedded in your skin?
I would say there was probably 3 times where it was embedded, and maybe, a handful, like 5 or 6 times, just crawling on me.
Okay. So what was your experience like when you found ticks embedded in your skin? Did you remove them in some way? Did you have someone else remove them in some way? What happened in those instances? And what were your ages at the different times that you recall ticks being embedded in your skin?
I can remember, like, well, my memory is shoddy, as most people with Lyme will know, but I can remember being like very young and having like a tick behind my ear that my mom had to get off, and then like one on my stomach that my mom got off. But then when I was in my 20s, I remember taking a shower after being out hiking, and I felt this really like big lump on the top of my head, and as I was washing my hair, and that one was, I think that's the one that gave me Lyme, but we'll get there. um that one I just pulled out myself, and silly, I still like didn't know enough about Lyme, or I didn't think that it would get me, I guess, and I didn't like do anything about it. I just plucked it off and said, ew, that's gross, and then forgot about it.
Now, that third tick you said was a big lump on your head. So when you took that tick out, what did it look like? Was it inflamed? Was it large, or was it a smaller tick?
It was small, but you could tell it was like a little bit engorged. Like it wasn't a giant tick that turns green. It was still black, but it was like a little bit, like it had some weight to it. So I had assumed that it had been on there for a little bit.
So let's talk about the first two tick bites that you suffered. You said you were young. Can you estimate how young you were the first time you found or your mom found a tick behind your ear?
Like 10 maybe.
And after your mom removed the tick, there was no prophylactic steps taken to take you to a doctor or any antibiotics, anything like that?
Nothing at all. It was just part of like growing up upstate. Like, we live kind of in the woods. Like it just, that was what we knew, was just, remove the tick, put it in tape so it can't get out, and then that's it.
All right. And the second tick you said was, I think you said on your stomach.
Same,
Uh,
same scenario.
same.
Yeah. Just pluck it off.
All right. So what was your health like during your childhood, between the ages of I guess birth and when you went to Manhattan College? Were you a healthy kid? Were you not a healthy kid? What was your health journey like?
I was a super healthy kid. Like I had no issues, a lot of energy. I I really like can't remember ever complaining about anything, or not feeling well, or not being able to do something because I didn't feel well. I was like really happy. I was achieving so much. I had a 4.0 in high school. Just doing every play, joining every club, that type of thing, was nonstop, just enjoying life.
All right. So you were a big geek
Yeah.
all the way until you went to Manhattan College. And so what was your vision for how you were going to serve the world during your childhood? You were very busy doing what? What were you working toward, and who did you think you were going to be serving when you were envisioning your future?
I really wanted to be an actress, for a very long time. I thought that I would, become a movie star at some point or something along the lines of like the entertainment business, like either a singer or an actor or Broadway. I was really into that. But then, I think when I went to college, I was like, okay, there's actually like better careers that I could pursue that make more sense for me. So I really wanted to do art. Creativity has always been in me, like no matter what. So I took graphic design courses and I learned, how to edit video and do photography. So I kind of went in that direction. Yeah.
All right. So you move to the big city to go to college. You go to a good Catholic school in Manhattan. I'm sorry, in the Bronx, formerly in Manhattan, named Manhattan College, but in the Bronx. Beautiful Riverdale. And you what was your course of study and what did you major in it in when you were at Manhattan?
Yeah, I majored in communication and digital media design.
All right. So you did share with us that it was in that window of time where you had the big tick bite in your head. So was that while you were in college? Was it after you had graduated college? Where were you in your educational experience when you found the engorged tick on your head?
I would say it was about 4 years after I graduated college.
Okay. So you were out, you were working. Now were you living in New York City at the time and visiting upstate? What were you
Yes,
doing?
exactly that. But I did start having a lot of health problems in college that were kind of odd and unexplainable. So again, I don't really know what tick was the culprit, but I my health started to change when I was in college, but that could have been from a lot of factors. It's like you're eating ramen noodles and you're not really getting enough sleep. So I don't really know, but I did go upstate for a weekend trip about 4 years after graduating college when I did find the tick on my head.
Okay, so let's build that out because that's really the next place I wanted to go to. Because I think folks often believe that Lyme disease is when you become chronically ill, there's some connection between at least a temporal connection between the time that you were bitten by a tick and the time that you ultimately become ill. And that's not what I think, at least anecdotally, the experience has been shared with us with practitioners. For example, Dr. Rawls and Dr. Phillips, two of the leading Lyme disease clinicians in the country have shared with us at different times that very rarely does someone go from tick bite to chronic illness.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, each of them have argued separately to us, both to us and in their books, that in most cases, if someone does go from tick bite to chronic illness, it's because they've either been bitten by multiple ticks or they are immunosuppressed as a result of living in for example, a moldy environment. And it's in those rare cases where someone will go from tick bite to illness. So when you first started describing your experience early on with the tick bite in your head and then you getting sick, that's why I was asking you about your experience as a child and what your health was like because now we're starting to see even in your journey, you had been bitten by ticks at least twice that you know of. You found ticks crawling on you. And of course, as someone who was not trained at that time, you don't know whether or not a tick was leaving you after having fed on you for a couple of days, or you just found it, crawling on you. And of course, in most cases, when we get bitten by a tick, we never discover the tick. Certainly,
Right.
if you're not doing regular tick checks, you're getting bitten by ticks regularly. They're feeding on you for a window of time. And they leave you without you even finding it, right? So you're in this tick endemic community, you're getting bitten all the time, and now your health starts to change when you go to college. And you said you thought there were many factors that might have been causing you to have this change in your health. You go from being, the uber healthy, overly committed young person with many, many goals of working in the arts in different capacities, right? Now you go to college. So talk about the stresses you had to deal with in college. First, moving from an upstate environment and a rural environment to now an inner city environment. Talk about some of the new experiences that you had available to you going to Manhattan College and talk about some of the things you did, like burning the candle at both ends and partying a little bit more than you would if you had, you know, parents helicoptering over you, and talk about how that college experience changed and how maybe some of those stresses and some of those changes may have um, reduced your immune protections and perhaps allowed the Lyme bacteria or other bacteria, protozoa, or viruses that had been spit into you by ticks to now start to develop in a way that your immune system wasn't able to protect you against.
Yeah, the first thing I remember happening is I developed really bad digestive issues that I never ever had. Like, and I went to so many doctors and they were just like, "Oh, it's IBS," which is like really BS at this point because, um so I struggled with that. I was having problems getting to classes because I was like embarrassed because my stomach would make these like really like loud squeaky noises. Like it literally felt like my overnight, like my entire digestion system changed. Certain foods I felt like I was allergic to all of a sudden. I went and had like a blood test done to see like what I was allergic to, and it was just really random stuff that I wasn't even eating. So I'm like, that can't be it. I mean, I definitely had like a good college experience, but this happened, I would say, like 2 years in, where I just developed all of these weird things. I developed a severe anxiety disorder and panic disorder. I remember multiple times in my classes, I just would be sitting there and I would suddenly feel like I was having a heart attack and I had to leave the class, and I would go to the nurse and be like, "I'm having a heart attack. I need to go to the hospital." And they would take me to just find out it was a panic attack. And I had no idea what a panic attack even was. I remember having vertigo and feeling dizzy a lot. Whereas the first 2 years of college felt like a dream. I was having so much fun. I was making friends. There were definitely like party nights and stuff like that. I was doing good in my classes. And then junior year, it's like everything just started to change for me. I ended up having to take a semester off to do online courses through my school because I felt like I could not physically get to classes, which is something, it was so rare for me because like you said, I was go 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 do my whole life, overachieving, to I can't even make it to a class because I have all these weird symptoms that no doctor can tell me what's going on. And that's pretty much where everything started to change for me.
Yeah, and just for folks who are not familiar with the Manhattan College campus, which is, by the way, a beautiful, beautiful campus, but the dorms are in close proximity to the classes, right? So it's not like you're walking 10 miles to get
Yeah.
to a class, and you couldn't even get from your dorm to your classes, which are, in close proximity to one another. So, how many doctors did you see, not only during your time at Manhattan when they were taking you to the hospital or you were visiting with different practitioners, but I'm assuming when you took your semester off, you not off, but you were taking classes online rather than on campus. Were you seeing doctors back home upstate, or what was that medical practitioner experience like?
Yeah, I had rarely gone to the doctor as a kid. I mean, I can remember a few times when I was sick, but when in college, I started just Googling doctors in that area. And sometimes I would travel to the city, but it would always be the same thing. Like, you're fine, you're healthy, your blood work is good, there's nothing wrong, you have anxiety. And that's pretty much like what I would keep getting over and over again. So I would just Google random doctors and just try different ones and be like, maybe this one will figure it out. Maybe this one knows.
So were any of the doctors recommending that you treat with a specific type of practitioner or a specific practitioner to deal with the anxiety or help you to define what was causing the anxiety and maybe come up with some solutions for that?
No, they just put me on Xanax.
All right.
Yeah.
So were they primary care?
Yes,
practitioners opening you on Xanax?
just put the Band-Aid on, oh, just take this when you feel anxious. When
And
I
what
Yeah.
was it helpful? Was the Xanax giving you any relief, or was it not?
It would, like, if I would feel, because once you have a panic attack, it kind of stays with you that any situation you go to, you could have that panic attack. So I started taking it, before certain situations where I felt I would have anxiety, but it wasn't really like fixing the issue. It was just completely masking it because I don't know why I just developed, these neurological symptoms overnight. So it to me that was not the right way to go about it, but at the time I didn't know. I was handed a pill and I was told that that would make, these things go away. So I just, went along with it.
So give us the progression of symptoms. How did things go from you being the healthy, happy kid who then goes to this really good Catholic school in the Bronx, has two very good years there, just sort of the same same healthy, happy kid that you had been before, and now your symptoms begin to develop. So give us the progression of symptoms from your sophomore year all the way until the time that you have to take the semester off from on-campus courses, and then how did it progress from there?
Yeah, it's interesting because I did move from the dorms into an apartment that was near the campus. It was kind of near the engineering building. I know you know the layout.
I do.
So it was like West 238th Street, but it was still really close to the school. I mean, I could walk to my classes in like less than 10 minutes. Um, I moved there because I was having a lot of social anxiety, like even being in the dorm. I wasn't really interacting with people. I was becoming more withdrawn and like didn't really want to go to parties and didn't want to go to things anymore. I just kind of wanted to like be by myself. So being in the dorm started to be a problem. Also, like with my stomach issues, I didn't want to use a, shared bathroom all the time. So I decided to get my own apartment, which my parents helped me get so I could manage these symptoms and still, get through my college time. Um, but I feel like when I moved there, everything started kind of like snowballing. Like things started getting worse. I don't know, like I don't really remember how like the progression was, but I just remember moving out of the dorm was like me saying like, okay, this is becoming so bad. I can't even live in the dorm anymore. Um, and then I was, kind of more isolated there and just with these symptoms, just feeling overwhelmed and like I'm not understanding what's happening to me.
So now, I mean, I don't know which dorm you were living in, but some of the dorms on campus, because Manhattan is an older campus.
Yeah.
Some of the dorms are older, and some of the dorms are newer. And I'm just wondering whether or not, perhaps when you were living in an older dorm, maybe it was moldy in the older dorm, and did things get better for you when you moved into your own apartment, or was the health impacts negligible, if not at all, when you moved out?
It was kind of like the opposite. Like I think if anything, um, the apartment I moved into was really old.
Oh,
So
okay.
I feel like my symptoms started getting worse when I did move there. But again, like I don't really know. Like this is all still kind of a blur because I've had like severe memory loss. But I just know like junior year is when I became like someone else, like
Okay.
my health. Yeah.
So you said you were describing your symptomology as neurological, and the first thing you shared with us was that you were suffering from anxiety and anxiety attacks. What other neurological or psychological symptoms did you have, and how did they progress after you moved into the perhaps moldy New York City apartment?
Yeah, the dizziness and the vertigo was definitely a thing. I started experiencing insomnia, having a really hard time falling asleep, and then like once I'm asleep, just waking up like all the time. I started feeling really tired. I remember like coming home from just like having coffee or lunch with a friend, and I just need to like lay down on the couch but I can't even fall asleep because I have like problems sleeping. I'm just so physically drained that I just had to like lay there. Um, the digestion issues were getting worse. And then more like, so the neurological, the anxiety was just manifesting into, um, I guess like some type of like paranoia, like scared to go out into the city, scared to go out into the world, like just kind of feeling like safe in my little apartment, which was never me. I was the most like social butterfly ever. And I just really felt safe in that apartment, which it was just very strange for me for that to happen.
And again, just for folks who are not familiar with that campus, it's actually one of the safest parts of New York City. At the time you were there, the mayor of New York was a graduate of Manhattan College, right? Rudy Giuliani, and Ray Kelly was the police commissioner at the time. He also graduated from Manhattan College. So, we had a very, very safe campus with a lot of police presence in that community. So you weren't afraid to go out because the community was unsafe. You were afraid to go out because of, well, the mental health issues you were dealing with.
Yeah, and then also I forgot, I at some point during my junior year, before I took the semester off, I decided I was going to study abroad, and I was like, I'm going to push myself so hard, even though I don't feel good to do this, even though I have anxiety, like I don't want to miss this opportunity. And I did. I went, and I was dealing with my symptoms so bad, especially being in another country. I went to Australia, which is
Wow.
halfway around the world.
Yeah.
And, I was still dealing with the same stuff, but I was just kind of like masking it and just really trying to push through. But then, I was having trips to the emergency room there too. One time I had inflammation in my heart. I was in the cafeteria, I remember, and I suddenly felt like I could not breathe. And I told my friend next to me, I said, I need to go to the emergency room now. Like, I think I'm dying because my heart and my chest felt really tight and pressure, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. And I get there, and they told me I had pericarditis, which is inflammation of the lining of your heart. How did I get that? I have no idea. But things were still going on even though I was there, and my stomach issues were so bad over there. Anxiety was so bad. I don't I did not do well in school studying abroad. I missed so many classes, and my parents were really disappointed in me, and I think they assumed that I was just like out, being a crazy 19-year-old
Party
in
girl.
Australia. Yeah, when most of the time I was staying in my dorm. Like I went to the pet store. This is so weird to tell a story. I went to a pet store and I bought two like cute little hamsters, and I brought them into my dorm because I'm like, well, I'm spending so much time in here. I need a pet. I've always had pets my whole life. And eventually the cleaning lady found them and took them away and said, like, you can't have these here. But that's how much time I was spending in my dorm, was like, I'm going to get a hamster. So it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm sorry. That does suck. And what also sucks is that you were in Australia when you were having these symptoms, because it's actually the official policy of Australia that Lyme disease doesn't exist. And we've interviewed many Aussies on this podcast. And,
Wow.
unfortunately, you were not in a great place to get a diagnosis,
Yeah.
despite having very classic Lyme disease symptoms.
Please.
So you finish your time in Australia, you come back home, and by the way, did the symptomology get worse after you got off the plane, either to Australia or after you had gotten back home? Because um, flying is immunosuppressive, and many people find that they get sicker after they spend some time on a plane, and you're on a plane like forever to get to Australia and back. So give me that piece of your experience.
I can't for certain remember that far back if I was sick, but I know in the last 10 years, every time I fly, I get sick. So I don't know about that specific time. I think I had too much adrenaline at the time to maybe to even like get sick or or realize I was sick. But absolutely like cannot fly without coming down with something now.
All right, so you now come home from Australia. You've had this difficult health journey. You have your parents less than pleased with your grades after coming back from Australia. How did things go with your health from there?
Um, I did graduate. I went back for my senior year and I'm really good at just pulling it together when I have to. And that's like something people always say, like, well, you never like act sick or you never look sick or and that's because I've literally for so long had to just push through. And that's what I did. I pushed through. I graduated with great grades despite the Australia segment. and and I graduated and I got my degree and um,
Congratulations.
thank you. And then I just kept going from there.
All right, so talk about what you did after you graduated from college. Where did you go to work, and what were your goals now that you've pivoted from working in the performing arts to now working in the creative arts?
Yeah, so I got an internship in the city at a nightlife promotions company where I was doing graphic design and helping them with their promotions. And then from there, I worked at a fashion design company where I was doing the lookbooks and working with the editor on all the PR and stuff like that, and the website, all that kind of stuff. Uh, I just like remember I would call out a lot. And I couldn't really like give an exact reason to them why. I just like I don't feel well. Like I don't feel good. So having a job for me where I had to report there every day, like, 9 to 5 was tough for me because I would have good days and then would have off days. And I did that for a while. They were lenient with me. Like I told them like I'm going through something with my health, but I'm not sure what it is, but this is how it is for me. If you value me, like, and you want me around, like I'll be the best I can be. So I did, I worked in some office jobs for a while, and I think I was living in the Upper West Side at this point with friends. And then I got an apartment in Queens and I started working here, just again, like same thing, like different companies doing graphic design. And then I got a job working at Weill Cornell Medicine doing graphic design for their neurology department, which to me,
Interesting.
yeah, I was like, let's go because I want to figure out what's wrong with me. Um, and it was focused on Alzheimer's, but it was also, chronic migraine, Parkinson's, dementia. It was like a whole bundle of things, but I was creating a whole course to teach people how to take care of their brain. And I was creating videos and all this content that the hospital was putting on their website, their YouTube channel, this and that. And also, I was like talking with patients to get their experiences with these things. So it was like a really great job and I really enjoyed it. But again, I was calling out so much and I was getting in trouble with HR. Like, why have you taken so many days off? And again, could not really describe to them what's going on because I didn't know. But the good thing about that job was I had really good health insurance. So I made sure to see every single doctor in that building, rheumatology, hepatology, um,
Yeah.
hematology, gastroenterology, neurology. I did everything and I had so many workups done. And they really, the same thing was like, your blood work looks good. You're low in vitamin D. You're very low in vitamin D. You've been low in it a very long time, but it's okay. Your iron is a little bit low. Your cholesterol's really high, but for the most part, you're healthy. And I still felt like this is weird until one day I was getting ready to go to work and I woke up and my eye was completely like blurry. And I went into work and I said, I can't see out of this eye. I need to go to the ophthalmology place immediately. and they found out that I had a mini stroke in my eye, like CRVO, which is basically like the vein to your retina has a blood clot and it causes like a mini stroke. So I thought that was really weird because my blood work was so fine. Like, why am I having a mini stroke in my eye? So that is like the only thing I really found out by going to all those doctors. Other than that, I was on paper, I was just healthy, but I, you know, was trembling. I had severe fatigue, brain fog, like you wouldn't believe. I remember just staring at my computer some days and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I couldn't remember things. People had to tell me things multiple times. This is when my symptoms were like really becoming a problem for me.
All right. So how long were you working after college and before you received the tick bite in your head that you described for us earlier?
The tick bite was in 2014. I started working in at the hospital in 2016.
Okay. Oh, so the engorged tick that you found in your head was 2 years before you went to work at Cornell?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that timeline.
But
Okay, so,
I've had other ticks in me before that. So, you know, again, I don't know.
right. So let's talk about that. So you're having these health issues during college. You're having these health issues after college. You have the tick bite in your head, and you get very, very sick, right? I mean, your health challenges are progressing. You are getting sicker. You are having more trouble going to work and focusing at work and staying at work, and you're having these other health issues develop, including an eye stroke, and you're a young woman, right? I mean, you know, you're testing healthily but not feeling well. Um, so, how did things progress after the tick bite in the head? I mean, did the things take off even more? Was it sort of just a part of the same steady progression of symptoms? What if anything did that tick bite in the head impact your symptoms?
Things got worse after that.
A
And
lot
again,
worse?
yeah, I remember 2015 and 2016 was like the height of my I don't feel good part of my life. To the point where I had to leave that job. I couldn't physically make it in there. Um, and I they were nice enough to keep me on as an independent contractor that could work from home. And that was like really great because I didn't want to, lose that job. I was passionate about it. I wanted to, help people with their health, but I was struggling with mine. So it was really hard to juggle both at the same time.
Yeah, so I just want to think a little bit with you about the tick bite in the head, right? I mean, your immune system was not doing well before that, right? You were getting really sick. So from your sophomore year or the end of your sophomore year in college, now you're out of college a couple of years. So it's about a 4 year window where your symptoms are progressing, and clearly your immune system is not optimal. Now
Right.
you get this tick bite, and now it really takes off, right? I mean, so your immune systems clearly didn't have the ability to manage all the ticks, and of course, it's a tick bite in the head, and you already had neurological symptoms. Your brain wasn't doing particularly well before that, and now things are really taking off
Yeah.
to the point where you have to stop working, right? I mean, you just don't feel comfortable working at that place because you can't perform at a high level, and you don't want to deal with the HR issues anymore. So you have to leave the job.
I was falling
So
asleep at my desk some days, like, and I was getting like, normal sleep hours. And that to me was like, whoa, this is crazy.
So talk to us about the fatigue, right? I mean, one of the things that I think folks struggle with fatigue is that people who have not felt that level of fatigue from Lyme disease think it's just like being tired. And it's really hard for folks who do not have Lyme disease to understand how their family members are feeling and what the experience is like. So Um, can you give us a specific definition of what your fatigue was like and how that was different than being tired at the earlier stages in your life?
For me, the fatigue was like if you had a lead blanket and you just put it over your entire body. Like lifting a finger feels like the biggest effort. Um, the fatigue would kind of just hit out of nowhere, and it would be so severe and so strong if you didn't close your eyes or you didn't sit down or you didn't lay down. It would feel like you would collapse almost. And I talked to many people in the hospital about chronic fatigue syndrome because I thought that's what I had. And um they were like, "Oh, there's really no way to test for that. Like your adrenals look fine." But it is like the most intense tiredness, where you can almost feel like you're just like sinking into whatever you're laying on, like you're so heavy. And um I still have that, like, to this day. That's the best way I can describe it, is just the heaviness.
Yeah. And of course, I think what folks don't understand is in part because so many of the bugs that you get from a tick bite are intercellular bugs
Yeah.
that our power plants, of course, in our bodies are our mitochondria, which are in our cells, and in many cases, because of the the intercellular bugs in our system, our mitochondria are simply not producing any energy. Because they're not producing any energy, then of course we have those struggles. There's another part of why we're so fatigued when we have Lyme disease. And that's because so much of our energy is focused on trying to battle the bugs, right? Our immune system is focusing on so many different bugs, and our immune system is being overwhelmed. And then, of course, there's the toxicity, right? I mean, there's just so much going on in our system, and so much die off, and so much so many toxic chemicals in our system that we can't get rid of. When you put that all together, it's just total body exhaustion. And that's what you were suffering from, right? And to the point where even though you had a job that you enjoyed, and even though you had these great health insurance benefits, you had to leave. You couldn't
Yeah.
stay.
I had to be able to nap like in the middle of the day at my house when that wave would hit. And yeah, so I started working from home.
So how long was it between the time that you had left working at Cornell and the time that you finally received a Lyme disease diagnosis?
Well, I left Cornell in 2017 and I got my diagnosis in 2024.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you had another 6 years of this progressing illness.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the next 6 years. How did your symptoms develop, and what doctors were you seeing, and what diagnoses did you receive?
At this point, I just accepted that I have an autoimmune disease. I don't know what it is, and I'm going to live my life the best that I can. I was working from home, which allowed me like the comfort of being able to rest if I didn't feel good. I had my own apartment. I was just managing it. Like I would go out with friends or do something like really intense physically, and then I would need 3 days of rest after that. But everyone just kind of like knew that about me. It was just a known thing. Like, "Oh, we're going to go do this and then Ciara is going to like die for 3 days." So that's kind of how my life was. I was still seeing so many doctors. I can't even give you a number of how many doctors I've seen. And it's all been my own research. I would say, well, this is I was getting these rashes all over my body that were very alarming, and they were kind of following my major arteries. And I would go to a dermatologist and be like, "What's this?" And, we don't know, here's some cream and some allergy pills. Um, the brain fog and the concentration was getting worse. Word finding was getting worse. I went to the hospital at least 3 times, um, because I thought I was having some type of stroke. And again, because I would just be unable to speak or think, and words would just not come out. And there were times when I would wake up in the morning and I wouldn't know my name. It was the most bizarre things. I have notebooks on notebooks of just these symptoms written down. um Pins and needles in my hands and my feet. My Sometimes my feet would look really like bluish. Wounds just won't heal. If I get a cut or a scrape or scratch, it takes like 2 weeks for that to heal. um I my weight would fluctuate. Like, I would go from like really, really skinny to like gaining a lot of weight. And again, just getting sick all the time. Every time I'm on a plane, I get to my destination, I'm expecting to enjoy myself, and I'm stuck in the room for 3 days with the flu or COVID or something. So it was just that my health took over my life, but I didn't let anybody know really about it. Only my close friends and my family. And my family was even skeptical of me. They were like, oh, you can get up, you just, come on, let's go. Like, you could do it. And or if I'm telling my mom like I have anxiety, I'm having an anxiety attack, you just snap out of it, like you'll be okay. And that was just my life. I was holding all of this in and just trying to be like everyone else, trying to go on the same path as all my friends that were my age, but knowing like this big dark secret of like something is really wrong with me and I don't know it. And I don't want to tell people that, I'm having like weird hallucinations sometimes, or like I, my insomnia is so bad I haven't slept in 3 days. Like, I don't want to tell people that because I was afraid of what they would think, or, say, oh, she's crazy or something. So I just really, I kept inside. I kept going to doctors, but, you know, was not getting anything. One doctor did actually say, oh, you have an autoimmune disease. I just don't know what it is, because I had a marker. But that's where it ended with him. And he was like, oh, you just, boost your immunity. So that's where it was. And then, so you want me to tell about my diagnosis? What actually?
Not yet. I do want to, before we get to the diagnosis, and Matt's going to take you through the diagnostic journeys. But before we get there, one of the things that we often hear from folks who we interview is that either when they're doing their own research, and clearly you are a researcher, it's not going to surprise anyone after listening to you for a while, that you're very smart and articulate and you cared about your health, right? You graduated from one of the big Catholic schools, one of the really good schools. So you're clearly very capable to get into good school. You graduated from that really good school despite being sick, with great grades despite the Australian experience. And now you're trying to figure out what's wrong with you, right? So when you're doing your research, whether it be through Google or any other resources, did you ever come across Lyme disease as a potential diagnosis when you were putting all your symptoms in and doing that research?
No. And the funny thing is, my dad had it, and that he didn't even mention. When I would say like my joint pain is so bad today, I feel like I can't get out of bed. Um, he didn't even think to say Lyme disease, because he caught his early and pretty much got rid of it. I think, like,
Right.
so nobody suggested it. No doctor ever tested me for it. It was just like not even on my radar. Even working in the hospital, I thought I had a million things before Lyme. I thought I had early onset dementia at 26, before I thought I had Lyme.
Yeah, and what's really troubling about your story to me, not just as a dad, but as as a New Yorker, is you grew up in the Lyme Belt.
Yeah.
You had migrating symptoms. You had symptomology that unfortunately wasn't resulting in diagnostic testing triggering anything. And these are all very, very typical Lyme outcomes, right? And so you're working at Cornell University, an Ivy League school, one of the top medical centers in the world, in the Lyme Belt, and they're not helping you to find a diagnosis, and nobody even thinks about it, right? So, I mean, I have to tell you, that's pretty odd, quite frankly, in at least our experience. At least somebody has sort of mentioned Lyme disease before we get a diagnosis in most cases, whether it be a medical professional even guessing and testing you for it, and of course, the test fails, so they come to the conclusion that you didn't have Lyme disease, or you come across it in your own research. And of course, the place where most of us get diagnosed is in the supermarket, where we're bumping into other people who are familiar with Lyme symptoms, and they then recognize that you have Lyme. So, did you have any of that where, and I know part of what you were sharing with us is that you were really stoic, and I don't think that was actually helpful to you, right? I think that people who are more open with sharing their symptoms are more likely to have somebody in the community recognize Lyme disease. But you're a tough gal, upstater, you're not going to share anything. You don't want anybody to see that in you. So you're not sharing that. So that might have been one of the reasons why you weren't diagnosed in the supermarket. Um,
I do remember like saying I don't feel good a lot, but that's the thing. I didn't really know what it was. If you have a
right.
stomach ache, you can say, "Oh, my stomach," or if you have a migraine, "Oh, I have a migraine." Like it was just this all over body feeling, and the only person that really took me serious was my mom. She would be like, "You say this so often, like there's something going on." But again, she didn't know. It's funny now that I have my diagnosis, everyone I meet has someone that has Lyme, has had Lyme, their cousins, brothers,
Certainly in New York. Yeah.
sisters, everybody has a connection to Lyme now that I know about Lyme. But before I knew, and I would Google symptoms, and the things that would come up were just like chronic fatigue or depression or I don't even know, like some compromised diseases. Never ever Lyme. I don't know if my Google was like had Lyme banned or something, but it was not even listed in there because that's an easy thing to test for. Chronic fatigue is like a whole mix of things. Lyme, it's like there's a test for it. So it sucks that I didn't.
So, Ciara, let's explore one more thing with you before I hand you over to Matt to go through your diagnostic journey, and that is one of the challenges that we have in Lyme disease. Is a disease without a definition. In
Yeah.
fact, there are as many definitions of Lyme disease as there are practitioners and researchers who are focusing on this disease. And I think one of the things that caused you to be failed is because your dad had an acute presentation of the disease, and we call that Lyme disease, and you had a chronic presentation of the disease, and we call that Lyme disease. And they have nothing in common with one another. And because of that, even someone in your own family suffering from Lyme disease couldn't help you to see what is, in my view, from just having this conversation with you, very clearly, showing classic Lyme disease symptoms. I can tell you that had I met you when my daughter was at Manhattan College and you told me what your symptoms were, I would have said, you sound very limey. You know what I mean? So there's,
Yeah.
it's very classic, right? So we here at Tick Boot Camp define Lyme disease as a polymicrobial, multisystemic, chronic, infectious or post-infectious disease, right? So we tease out the acute presentation. We do not consider that Lyme disease, right? And I think because of the Lyme disease definitional problem, you had an even longer journey and weren't focusing on it because your dad's experience was the acute presentation and you didn't have that.
No.
All right, so you're finally diagnosed in 2024. How'd you get diagnosed with Lyme disease?
At this point, my body was flaring up with inflammation so bad. Like it was the worst. And I woke up one day again and my eye was all red, bloodshot, really painful, swollen, blurry. And I said, "Here we go again." I had another stroke in my eye. So I went to NYU in the city. They have a good ophthalmology ER there. And the doctor's looking at my eye and he said, "Oh, well, I think you have scleritis," which, we only see it in a few conditions. And it was like syphilis, God, I can't remember. There was like four conditions where scleritis like looks like my eye, and he mentioned Lyme as one of the four. And I'm thinking, I don't have any of these. This is going to be another instance where I'm just sent home with this weird thing. So they test me for everything, and I can't. Yeah, no, they treated my eye, and I basically like went on my way waiting for the blood work, and I'm just like not thinking anything at this point. And wouldn't you know, I get the blood work back, and I'm positive for Lyme.
Wow.
Yeah, because of my eye. Like my eye is always doing something. So that was literally how I got diagnosed. And I'm like, great, now what? Because I don't even know the first thing about treating this. So I went to my primary care doctor who, he just helps me with colds and stuff. He's not like a deep diver type of doctor. I don't have great health insurance. I'm on Medicaid now. So because I lost my job and my good health insurance. So now I have, free health care. So I can just get what I can get. And he's like, okay, take doxycycline for 2 weeks and you'll be fine. So I did that. And I thought, well, maybe this is it. Maybe now I'm cured, And obviously I didn't feel any different after that. So tell me if you want me to pause or
Rich,
Yeah,
you're
no,
stepping on
no.
my turf here, Rich, is all I'm
I'm
saying. Come
sorry.
on.
I'm sorry, Matt. Ciara's telling such a powerful story that I wanted to take her all the way to the end. But you're right, Matt. It
oh,
is your turn.
All right. So, Ciara, I just want to say that it's interesting because I often think about regional strains of Lyme disease, and I have conflicting thoughts about this topic.
okay.
So, for example, sometimes we have people tell us, I got the European strain of Lyme disease, but yet I've never left the States, or I've never left New York or Pennsylvania or, whatever, North Carolina. So then you think, well, these strains really aren't isolated to certain regions. But then I hear a lot of people who have eerily similar experiences to mine, like yourself being a New Yorker. And then I wonder, how many strains are there really of Lyme and co-infections? And is there really a regional, maybe concentration of these types of strains, which indicate, stronger symptoms in certain regions compared to others, right? So I don't know if I'm geeking out too much. You can tell me like, you don't know, you've never thought about it. What are your thoughts on that?
I it's something I haven't even really like dove into is like the strains. Like I've been hyper focused on the fact that like I just have this and I don't know how to get rid of it. I'm
Yep.
not even aware that there are like that many strains. Like I do my own research, but there's so much to research. And my
Yeah.
focus is more on like how do I help myself rather than like I think understanding the disease so much because I think I get a bit discouraged sometimes if I just read too much about it. I mean, I have so many books and stuff, but you get consumed with it. So I'm totally eager to hear like what you know, you think about that, but
No, I think you refocused me very
I
properly
don't
because
know
no,
anything.
no. And look, I only asked because me and Rich had this debate. Rich texted me, I don't know, a month or so ago, and he goes, Matt, how many strains of Lyme are there again? And I'm like, I don't remember. And I go and I look, and then I realize, oh, yeah, Dr. Harwitz has one set of number of strains. Then you have Dr. Cameron, who says there's another amount of strains. Then you have the CDC with another, and then the NIH with another. So really, they don't know, right? They have no idea how many strains are there. And in the end, what is this podcast about? And what are you trying to do? You're trying to overcome this chronic illness to get better. And that's really what it's all about. So thank you for refocusing me on that, PCR. So let's talk about you get your diagnosis, you do your doxy, you're not better, and now you're probably in the same state that I was, and pretty much everybody listening. Okay, what do I do now? I feel like I'm this like weird person who's not getting better. I'm supposed to get better. What is your emotional state? How are you feeling? And what is your doctor plan for you next?
At this point, I knew that I did not have a recent Lyme infection because I don't remember getting bitten by a tick except for years ago. So I didn't really think that the doxy was going to do it personally. But that being said, I told my dad and my mom, I said, I don't feel better after the doxy. Like, I think I need to go see a Lyme doctor. And that's when we found our first Lyme literate doctor who examined me and was like, oh, how long have you had those dark circles under your eye? And you have neuropathy and this and that. And he like really shook me into like, oh my God, first of all, someone's actually noticing these things about me. Someone's asking the right questions finally. Somebody's looking at my blood work and saying, yeah, it's not like blaring that you're sick, but this is a little low and this is a little high and this is weird because, taking a deeper dive at the things that people just kind of overlooked. So I felt really hopeful and excited with this doctor. And he said, that doxy did nothing. We're going to inject you with IV Rocephin for 2 weeks and see how you feel. So I did that. And he also put me on a ton of supplements, like for my brain, my heart. Like I was taking like 40 pills a day. And also injecting myself at home, which was super scary. And like, I don't think anybody should be doing that, to be honest.
But yeah, when you say injecting yourself, do you mean you were administering your own IV to administer the IV antibiotics he prescribed you?
Yeah, I had a port in my arm and I was doing saline. I was doing the antibiotics and heparin and saline every single day. And I reported back after the 2 weeks and he's like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, literally the same. Like nothing feels different at all. And that's when he said, okay, we're going to put a PICC line in you, which for people that don't know is a line that goes in through your arm, up around your shoulder, into your heart cavity and like into your heart. So I was really scared about this. I didn't want to do it, but I'm like, if this is what I need to do, I'm going to do it because I've lived too long with this.
So before you go any further, there's a couple of follow-up questions. Yeah. So what kind of doctor was this again?
A Lyme literate doctor.
Okay.
I guess that's what they call it.
Was it like was it a naturopathic doctor? Was it a medical doctor? Because oftentimes we hear Lyme literate doctors can be MDs, NDs. Sometimes they're chiropractic doctors that have, MDs they partner with. I'm just curious if you recall what type of doctor it was, what facility.
I think he was a naturopath. I can double check, but.
Got it. Was he upstate or where was he located?
He was upstate in Rhinebeck, New York.
Got it. Okay.
MD. He was MD. Okay.
Now, a couple follow-up questions to that as well. So when you first had the 2 weeks of doxycycline, you said you didn't feel anything, but did you feel, sometimes people herx, but did you feel any kind of reaction at all? Was it really just like status quo? You were still suffering, but it was the same level of suffering?
I would say it was like the same level of suffering, except like my body got overgrown with yeast because my gut is already so bad that I had like a candida blowout in my body from the 2 weeks. And I did feel like worse at the end, but I wasn't going to even like go there because it fluctuates so much how bad I feel on a day to day. So I just kind of thought it was like, okay, this is a bad day. Like I didn't even really know about herx back then either. They literally just gave me the antibiotics and said, take this and you'll be fine.
Yeah, what we like to do in this podcast is kind of give warnings and cautions and things to look out for. And I think that's such a common one where you got a diagnosis from a non-Lyme literate doctor, but you were also suffering from severe GI issues and stomach issues that you had for quite a while, for many years. But then you get antibiotics, but nothing to deal with the gut or your stomach. And of course, you had even worse stomach issues because of the antibiotics, which is common, right? So I think that's a warning for everybody listening in case they're in that part of their journey. Now, when you did the 2 weeks of IV antibiotics that you were injecting yourself before the PICC line, you said you felt nothing as well. No herxing, no other odd symptoms, a sort of just status quo health at that point.
Yeah, it really just like didn't feel like I couldn't walk in there and say, I feel great or I feel so much worse. It was just kind of like, I still just felt the same I've always felt. Almost like this antibiotic was not like getting into the barrier of like where I had the damage. Like that's how I could describe it. Like I felt like it was doing nothing and I was just pumping my body with this for no reason. And I wished I had a different experience. I wish I could have said, oh, I had herx because then it's doing something, but I didn't feel anything.
Yeah, but it probably wasn't getting deep enough to your point, right? Maybe it was in your brain, your nervous system. And we know that, it takes a lot more to penetrate that. So
yeah.
additional question before we get into the pick line is where are you at in your life at this point, right? Specifically, where are you at with support? So is it, loved ones, significant others, parents, and your supporters that were around you? How are they viewing your health? Do they truly believe you that you were physically unwell? Did they think it potentially could be, a mental health problem as well? Just give us context about your personal life that was going on at this time.
When my diagnosis of Lyme came back, everybody was like, oh my God, this is it. Like, this is what it's been this whole time. Everybody was on board. I had just met a guy the day before I got diagnosed. So I was really excited about like a new relationship. But then I had this dark cloud of this right over my head, like, oh God, like I'm going to be dealing with a lot. So everybody was supportive. I have to say, I couldn't afford the Lyme doctor. The Lyme doctor was like, I mean, it was $2,000 just to walk in his door. I had to rely on my family, my parents, to help me pay for this because we just like he was the doctor that treated my dad's girlfriend back in the day when she had Lyme, and she said, oh, he's great. So we just went by family recommendation, but they were totally supportive and they still are. So I felt like I had a lot of help and love around me. Yeah.
Were you living on your own? Were you independent? Were they helping take care of you? Give us an idea as to how sick you were and the quality of your life at that time.
I was living with roommates because, I just wasn't making enough money to live on my own because I wasn't working as much as I had in the past where I had, my own place. So yeah, I was living with roommates and they weren't supporting me, but it wasn't until I started needing money for doctors that they really stepped in.
Got it. Okay. So now let's go back to you're with this Lyme related doctor that's upstate and you get the PICC line put in. Talk to us about what that experience is like, because again, our stories sort of merge here. I had a PICC line put in as well, and I had IV antibiotics as well. And I remember being told you need a PICC line and being so afraid of what does that mean? And when they explain it, it sounds so scary. We're putting a direct line into your heart. And I remember like just the fear that I had, and they don't really explain much. They walk in, they put the metal on you, I guess, so they can do the x-ray to figure out how to guide it, right? And
Yeah.
they put pressure on you. So walk us through like what that was like getting the PICC line installed and just all of your thoughts, emotions, and support by your medical team while you're going through this.
I have to say the team of guys that did that procedure were great, but it was the scariest thing ever because you're awake, you're not even like a little bit sedated, and that they numb your arm and they're feeding something in through your vein up into your heart. Like for anyone with anxiety, that is like the scariest thing because one wrong move, they can pierce a valve, they can pierce the lining. There's so many things that could go wrong. I'm so grateful it went well for you and for me. I mean, I walked out of there okay, but the team was like really, really good. I had it done at Mount Sinai. But it wasn't so much the getting it done. It was the aftermath of it for me. That was an actual nightmare. This doctor that ordered the PICC line said that I would have a nurse come to my house to change the dressing once a week. And that basically I wouldn't have to do anything but just inject myself, and keep it clean, wear a thing over the shower so you don't get it wet.
Which
And
doesn't work, by the way, right? Did your shower thing work? Mine did not.
I got a pretty good one off Amazon.
You got to send us the link for the show notes because mine was a disaster and I could not shower.
Yeah, it's annoying, but like I would always keep my arm out of the shower just in case. Yeah. But so what ended up happening, this is where it gets really messed up. They somehow messed something up with where I lived because he was upstate. And after I had this thing installed, and for people that don't know, it is like the size of an iPhone on your arm, like between the whole bandage and the whole thing. It's like this giant apparatus. They said, oh, we don't have a service for the nurses to come to your house to change your dressings. We thought you were upstate, but if you're going to be in the city, like we can't have that. And I was like, okay, well, this is where I live. And like, what do you mean? I can't live upstate, like it just was not working for me.
But that's pretty odd because you would think that the city is more populated than upstate New York, and there'd be way more providers covered by your insurance to come facilitate the cleaning of the PICC line and the maintenance of the PICC line, right? So it's very odd to hear that.
Not Medicaid. Medicaid does not do it.
Hmm.
So I was kind of, and they didn't have like a plan B. And they told me this after I had it in. If they had told me before, I would have waited until we had this all sorted. So now I get home from the hospital with this thing and I'm like, great, I can't just take it out. Who's going to take care of this? Who's going to clean it? And I called so many hospitals. I said, can I come in once a week? And can you guys clean it? No, we can't touch that. It was put in by a doctor and only that doctor can do it. And they were telling me that I would have to drive upstate once a week for them to do it, 2.5 hours. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I don't feel well. I cannot drive that much, especially with this thing. So this, do not do this, everyone. This is not advice. I went on Instagram and I put up a story that was like, is there any nurses that have PICC line experience in Queens that would like to come to my house? I can pay you every visit to change my PICC line. I know this is the worst thing.
This is like a horror story. It's like a Netflix.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to. Yes, but this sounds like it could be really bad.
It was. So this really sweet girl answers, and she lives right down the street from me, and she said that she had experience this and that. So I'm like, okay, we found her, we're good. The only thing is the PICC line I had put in was different than what she had worked on. I guess she worked on a different type. And the first cleaning, there was so much blood and I didn't have the right things. They didn't even give me the right things to change it with. I had nothing. So I remember in the middle of the night, my dad and I driving to Mount Sinai because it was bleeding so bad and gushing blood. I walk in there and I'm like, I need this. I need what do they call it? There was a clicky thing that you click. I forget all the names now.
Yep.
God, I think I've tried to erase this. There was a green cap, and then there was a click thing, and then you needed the bandage, and then you needed all these different tube things. So they gave me everything. These people, they felt so bad. They said, we're not allowed to do this. And I'm sorry if you guys get in trouble. They said they were not allowed to do it, but they were going to do it for me because they felt so bad that I had no aftercare. And meanwhile, this doctor, I tried to call a million times that this was going on and nobody called me back. So here I am with this girl from Instagram, and she's like, it took us an hour to figure out how to change the thing the first time. Then things got better. I think I was injecting.
Wait, you kept her after that?
Yeah, no, it wasn't it wasn't she didn't know what she was doing, but it was already bleeding a lot. And then when she jiggled it, I think it was just I don't know, something was weird with it. So I kept her.
You were very nice. You're a nice person. That's all I'm going to say.
I know. I really just didn't know what else to do, to be honest. Yeah. And then, so I was injecting myself I had these they were the balls of antibiotic where you just kind of let it sit and it goes in. I did that for a while. I think it was 3 weeks. And then, so I started dating this guy that I had met when I first got diagnosed, and he was
with the PICC line in your arm.
Yeah. This is our first few months together. He's like, oh God, what am I signing up for? So I'm at his house in the middle of the night and I feel a fluttering feeling in my heart. And I'm like, oh God, the line is hitting something, because it was a really weird feeling that I haven't felt since I got that out. So I know it was PICC line related. So we go in the middle of the night to the hospital down the street, and they take it all out and they're looking at it and they're measuring it with a thing to see how long the line is. And they're like, oh, it shouldn't be touching anything. It looks like it's the right length. So again, I'm going home and I'm just oh my God, it's like a walking nightmare knowing that this thing is it could go wrong at any second. So fast forward, she does 2 more cleanings. The third cleaning, I looked at the port site and it was not right. It was like yellow and it looked like it was like pussing a little bit and it was really painful. Like it was hurting bad. And I'm like, fuck, this thing is infected, you know? And the worst part is if you get an infection in that PICC line, it goes straight into your heart.
Yeah.
And that's, no, you don't want that. So I get in the car and I drive 2.5 hours to this doctor and I walk in there and I'm like, get this thing out of me. I'm sick of this. You know, I don't feel better because I'm so stressed out from this whole thing. They take it out. It's badly infected. I go on antibiotics again now for the infection, and I have to put cream on the infection that with a giant hole in my arm. And then they said, well, you need to finish the antibiotics, so we're going to put another port in your lower arm down by your wrist. So they do that, right? Okay, I'm on that for like 3-4 days, and then suddenly my arm feels like stone. Like if I touched my arm, it was rock hard. There was no flesh, there was no give, there was no bounce. It was just like touching wood. And I'm like, oh my God, it's not going in my vein. The antibiotics I'm administering are going into like my muscle and my tissue and my skin. So I thankfully my boyfriend at the time was there with me and I'm like, you got to take this thing out because there's something wrong. Like it's going into my body and it's not going into my veins. He takes the bandage off. The line that goes into my vein, there was so much pressure on it, it shoots across the room and hits the wall. I'm not kidding. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. They must have put it in wrong or on a weird angle where there was too much pressure building up and it wasn't even in my vein and it was just a mess. So that was it. That was the end of me injecting myself with antibiotics.
Okay, so
there's a lot. I'm sorry.
This is a lot to digest.
I know.
But there's a couple of things, and I'm going to focus on two sides of the coin, right? The first side will be the negative coin, then I'm going to focus on the positive side of the coin. The negative side is, of course, you're administering IV antibiotics to your heart to fight off a chronic infection of Lyme and probably other infections that you didn't even know you had from a tick bite and other things you picked up throughout your life. When you become that chronically ill, you have other infections that pop up that your immune system can normally manage, and it probably wasn't. So it was a much needed treatment. But unfortunately, because of all of the factors that went along with this, I don't think you really received a lot of the benefits you would have otherwise. And specifically, I mean, your stress level, your sleep, your anxiety, all of those things contribute to your body's ability to receive the full benefit of antibiotics in conjunction with your immune system working together to eradicate all the bad things that you're trying to fight, right? Mm-hmm. And you just had all of these things stacked up against you, from lack of sleep, stress, not being able to finding somebody on Netflix. I know it wasn't Netflix, but I like to say Netflix now. So finding somebody on Netflix, finding, whatever, all these crazy things, and then having the infection. So now you're compounding an additional infection, right? I mean, then putting it in your wrist, all these things really kind of stacked up against you. And, I think that's unfortunately probably prevented you from getting the full benefit of what little antibiotics you did get in the few weeks that you received it. However, on the other side, and I don't think, depending on how people are watching this, if they're watching it on YouTube, they're seeing you and they're watching your expressions. But if they're not and they're listening on, Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, the way you shared that story and the way you brought humor into it, right? And Rich was laughing muted. I was laughing because I was taking cues from you and you were just laughing about it. And the fact that you're able to kind of laugh it off for such a serious, serious thing shows that you've processed it in a healthy way. And that's really important to overcoming chronic Lyme disease, right? So the fact that I can see you're dealing with this in a positive, healthy way, despite it being such a crappy disease, is a huge sign of you're going to be able to get through this and continue to fight it and get stronger and stronger and stronger, because that is an absolute requirement in order to heal. So I don't want you to lose sight of your demeanor, your approach, your humor, and your willingness to keep fighting. That's how you're going to get better and get to, full health again. So I think that's a really positive sign. I can see Rich unmuted and he wants to weigh in here.
Yeah, no, but I also think there's another really positive sign here, right? In many cases, we don't trust our onboard diagnostic system. We don't trust our body to protect us, right? In this case, I mean, part of the reason why I laughed is your body is so strong. It shot this thing out of you, right? It was like a slingshot shooting it out of you because your body needed it out.
Yeah,
And it shot it out. So I think it's one of the most powerful examples of over
Yep.
600 interviews that we've done where your body was protecting you,
yeah,
and it literally slingshotted this thing out of you, right? So
no more. And I
I
can laugh about it now, but I mean, during that time, it was like really scary. But
Of
also,
course.
I felt so much relief that I didn't have a needle in me. And I was like, there has to be a different way to do this. This isn't working for me. Like you just said, my body was like rejecting it. It was not, it was getting infected or it was shooting out. So you're right.
yeah.
Like, and I also just, I handle life and chronic illness with humor. So that's just kind of like my personality. But it isn't a funny thing. But I think to get through it, like, I need to laugh about certain things, you know?
For
Yeah,
sure.
I
Yeah.
also think, I mean, the guy you were in the relationship with, seeing things fly out of your body had to be thinking like, holy cow,
No,
whoa, what do I have going on here?
yeah, it didn't last much long after that, but that's okay.
Oh man. So, all right. So now you finally get this thing out of you. And not so this is really evolving. I really think your story should be on Netflix, right? Because you can turn it, and I'm gonna keep coming back to that theme. You can turn it into a comedy, a drama, an awareness campaign, and people are going to experience all kinds of emotions like they're experiencing on this podcast because sometimes you got to mix all that together to really raise awareness and advocate, and you're doing that really well. So I advocate when this is over, you go and you look about what it would take to do some sort of reenactment of your story for Netflix and get awareness out there. Because I think that's what your calling is going to be.
I would love to, and that goes into me wanting to be an actress when I was a kid. You know, it would come all full circle for me. But
Yep,
yeah,
I think that's in your future for sure. But let's talk about now after you got everything out of you. How are you feeling and what are your next steps? Did you fire this doctor? Are you continuing to treat with this doctor? What the heck?
I was so upset at the way they handled it. Like they didn't even call to see how I was when it got infected. They didn't. They wanted to charge me. I think it was $20 a minute for a phone conversation with the doctor to do a follow up. And at this point, we'd already paid them like 10 grand. Um, and we're not like some wealthy family. You know, this is coming from my dad's hard earned savings because I just literally did not have the money. And we were told by our friend that this guy would cure me. So it was worth it at the time. We all were on board, but there was no bedside manner. There was no, oh my God. Oh, and I forgot a huge part. Oh my God. See, this is the brain fog.
Oh, this is going to be a good one. I can tell.
Before it shot out, 2 days before, it started leaking blood from the tube where you hook on the antibiotics. So there's like a little tube that comes off the port and you hook on the antibiotic on there and then you inject it in. For anyone that's watching, I'm using my hands to kind of like show you. So blood was seeping out into that tube, which is not supposed to happen. There's a little clip where you can clip it and it keeps the blood in your vein and a little bit in the tube. It was dripping out like on my clothes. So I'm like, oh my God, this port is faulty. There's something wrong with the tube. So I'm with my mom at the time, and I said, we got to go to the hospital. Something's wrong. So we go to the hospital, the ER, and I'm standing there and checking in, like saying like, hi, I'm Ciara Gaglio. And I literally faint to the ground. My mom's behind me. She catches me like this. And she's like, oh my God. They call the ambulance. I'm white as a ghost. And I'm in the ambulance. I don't really remember much, but they took me to the hospital where they basically like changed out the port because that one was faulty. So this doctor gave me a faulty port.
Wait, so your doctor gave you a faulty port. The hospital replaced it with a quote unquote good one. And then several days later, the good one shot out of your body.
Yes.
Okay. That is, again.
Yeah. Had to add that in. But like the fainting was just like, really? Like what else? And I just remember like going and seeing the lady's face and just being like, hi, I'm Ciara. And then she just like went black.
I'm telling you, this is going to be a movie. It's going to be. It's going to be a movie.
My poor mother, she was just so worried about me. And then, I was in the hospital all night. And yeah, so
wow.
Forgot that little tidbit.
I mean, okay, so you there's a lot to unravel here.
Yeah.
So you were talking about like this doctor came highly recommended. Your parents tapped into their savings to help you go to him. Now he's wanting $20 a minute just to talk to you. So what do you do? Do you even have that consult, or do you just fire him on the spot and get another doctor? And what's next? And also, where are we chronologically? Because this was just last year, right? We're talking 2024. You got diagnosed. So give us time frame. What month are we in? What year are we in? Because this is all over the course of what, a 12 to 18 month window.
Yeah, this is May of 2024.
Okay.
So I fired him, and my dad's like Italian from Brooklyn. He says that he spits on his office every time he drives by.
Good.
That's kind of how we feel about him, because he took our money and never cared about me ever again. So yeah. At that point, I was like, I am taking a break from this because I'm traumatized, and I'm going to just take a few months off from any type of treatment. Like, I really needed a mental break. Every night worrying about that PICC line and like all these things in me, I couldn't do it. So I took like 2 months off. And I said, and me and my boyfriend at the time, we were like, let's go to Europe. And I'm like, okay, let's go. I just want to do something that's not, I had to stay home every night with that thing. Like, my life was just all about, that. So we go there, and I get off the plane, and I'm pretty tired. 3 days later, I find out I have COVID, and I end up spending the entire vacation in bed, so sick, like so sick. And that vacation was up, and it's time to come home. I mean, we did have like a couple good days at the end, but it was really rough. And when you get COVID and you already have like an underlying chronic illness, it's like double time. It's really hard to fight that. And being in Europe, I didn't have any of like the medicines I would normally use for a cold. Everything is in French. So I'm going into the pharmacy, and I'm trying to get like something for my throat, and I can't read anything. And it was like the worst place to actually get sick when you're already sick, because there's no even doctor you can go to really there. So I came home, and then I started thinking about like the holistic approach. I'm like, okay, I did the antibiotic, it didn't really do anything. What am I doing for my body that I can do for myself? I ordered so many supplements.
What made you think holistic though? What put your brain there?
I got so traumatized from the injection aspect. Like, it really did mess me up, seeing that thing fly out of my arm and having blood on me all the time. Like, oh, so much blood from these veins, just like not being able to take this. I didn't want to do that anymore. I said there has to be another way. And that's where I just really like relied on ChatGPT and Google, and I bought a ton of books, and I just filled my my cabinets with like supplements that they weren't even for a specific thing. Like, it would just be overall like building up my immunity, my cell health and stuff like that, and like supplementing vitamin D, because my vitamin D dropped to like 14. I think like the average person is supposed to have like 80 and higher or something like that. It was so low, and that wasn't working. I still wasn't feeling good. So then we found another Lyme literate doctor, and we were like trying this again.
All right, so where are we now? So you come back from Europe, you try the natural medicine. It doesn't really do much moving the needle, and you find another Lyme literate doctor. Where are we time-wise?
March of this year.
March of this year. Okay.
Yeah.
But just give me an idea, how bad are your symptoms, right? Because were they improved at all from the IV antibiotics, the PICC line, the second line, all of that? Was there any improvement at all? Because they are strong antibiotics, despite all the trauma and despite all the other infections. Did they help at all, or not really?
They didn't help. And I was told by a doctor most recently that was not the right antibiotic for my chronic Lyme. I was told that it was not going to go through the brain
barrier. Yep.
Yeah. So it kind of makes sense why I didn't feel anything. So I found this really very, very smart doctor.
How'd you find him?
Again, through a friend.
Okay. Was he local? Is he in New York?
She's in New Jersey.
She's in Jersey. Okay.
2-hour drive though. Again, like, I'm really, there's just, but in between this, I had gone to see every infectious disease doctor in New York City at every hospital that my Medicaid would pay for, because I was not draining my parents like anymore after that. They all told me, you have 3 bands positive and you took doxycycline, you're cured. You don't have Lyme disease. That was what I was told every single time. And I said, okay, well, why, like, when I wake up in the morning, do I feel like I'm 100 years old and my bones hurt and I can't, like, move my arms? And why do I have all these symptoms that now I know about Lyme? I know that I still have symptoms of Lyme. I went and got an MRI and I had white spots on my brain.
I did as well. Our stories are eerily similar.
Yeah. So I'm like, what is all this stuff if I don't have Lyme? Then what do I have? Tell me, like, what do I have? And they're just like, well, you have inflammation and chronic, and it was just this song and dance over and over. I can't tell you how many times I was told I don't have Lyme. Then I go to the Lyme literate doctors, and this woman in New Jersey, she's like testing me up and down for everything. And my C6 protein or whatever, I think C6,
Yep.
yeah, so high or low, I can't remember, but it was like off the charts of what it should have been. And then I found out I had Bartonella. And she's looking at my fingers and she's like, oh, you have like white spots on your fingers and your toes. Like, that's Bartonella. She did a full body exam. I have severe neuropathy in my feet, so it's like this giant gap between Western medicine doctors, and she was an MD. So, but the doctors you would go to, like, in a hospital or a, some type of facility where they have all different types of medicine, that will say you don't have Lyme. And then there's a doctor that understands Lyme and says you have Lyme really bad. There's no in between.
Yep.
So she was saying, like, I can't treat you because if I give you oral antibiotics, your gut is so bad, like, you will not make it through it. And she said, that's not an option for you. And she said, if I give you IV antibiotics, your body was rejecting it the last time. I'm scared to do that. So, $4,000 later, I was just left in the same position that I started in. Like, what do I do?
Wait, she literally told you, I can't help you.
Yeah.
And took your money.
Yeah. Yeah. Because my gut was not, she gave me probiotics and said, take these probiotics, get your gut healthier. Those probiotics made me feel so sick, like, did not feel good. I don't even know what was in them. But yeah, she said, I can't give you this and I can't give you that. So she wrote a letter of recommendation and said I was a very complicated 36-year-old woman and that she was unable to treat me after I had paid her. She was very smart, but again, another instance of, like, what do I do then? What do I do? So then I went to Stony Brook Medicine. I met with a great doctor there who said,
Stony Brook at the hospital or somewhere, again, offshoot? That's actually 10 minutes down from where Rich and I are.
Oh, yeah. So I went there recently in June, and I met with a really nice doctor who understood my struggle.
Infectious disease? What unit?
Yeah, infectious disease.
Not Dr. Marcos. Tell me that, Dr. Marcos.
I don't even remember his name.
Was he like the leading Lyme literate infectious disease doctor who's on the news and always on TV?
I don't know if he's on the news. I just called and I said I needed to speak to somebody that's in Lyme. But he was young. He was, like, really personable, nice. Yeah, maybe that's him. He basically said, I can't treat you. Like, I don't know how to fix this. He said, you have to fix the symptoms. Like, we don't know if you have an active Lyme infection or if this is an old infection that has just damaged your body and your cells in so many ways that now you're dealing with this. And that is, like, kind of where I am still at, is like, I have no idea what to do. So my latest thing I've been doing is just, like, taking these supplements that I find that rebuild my cells, and I'm trying to just repair the damage. But this is why, like, I'm not the best person to ask for advice with Lyme because I still haven't figured it out.
Yeah, but none of us have, right? None of us have fully figured it out, which is why every guest brings different things to this podcast. So just because you're not at the end of your journey doesn't mean you're not going to help a lot of people listening to this podcast. So, I think we've learned a lot of lessons from you. And my favorite lesson is just your energy and your aura and your vibe, because you're just putting out that like, hey, I don't know it all, but I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to keep fighting, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to get better. And that's kind of what we all need to adopt, because in my personal journey, and Rich knows this, there was a good amount of years where I just sort of said, I'm damaged, I'm broken, I can never get better, and I accept that. And I got worse. Once I was able to have the mindset of, I'm going to keep pushing forward and try new things, you eventually find things that help and you get momentum, and the little things add up. And before you know it, you look back and you go, wow, I've come a really long way. But it's never just overnight. It's never just a quick fix. It's never just a magic cure, right? So I think that's a big lesson that you've learned, and that pretty much all of our listeners have had to learn, right? So, and I also think it's fair, because the debate of, is it an active Lyme infection or not, with all these studies coming out, even with the Lyme specialists, where sometimes it's not even the active infection, it's the residual trace elements of this bacteria found in our liver, right? Now they're saying it's found in our liver and it's found in our lymph system, and that's causing an immune response, causing chronic inflammation, mimicking the symptoms of an active Lyme infection. So I don't think even the leaders in this space fully understand yet what it is. But I think at its core, you've identified the most important thing to do. Let's do things, especially these natural things that are natural antimicrobials, broad spectrum antibiotics, broad spectrum antivirals, broad spectrum antiparasitics, that are all just herbal things that help, kill off things in your body, while also supporting your immune system, your liver, your gut, etc. And you can't go wrong by doing that, right? If you're taking herbal kills and herbal rebuilds, and you're doing it at a pace in which your body can handle, depending where you are in your journey, which is not really science, it's more of an art, then you're going to continue to make progress and move forward. I think that's the message I'm hearing from you right now. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Like, we didn't even talk about, the co-infections. Like, I have like Epstein-Barr virus, off the chart, Rocky Mountain spotted fever. God, there were so many on my thing. Like, I can't even remember all of them. Some of them I can't even pronounce. They were like weird tick, like not Borrelia, but like something else would be.
Babesia?
No.
You got Babesia, Bartonella, Borrelia. Rich, what am I missing?
Maybe Bergdorf.
Oh, Borrelia Burgdorferi is the default.
It's just a strain of Lyme.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a strain.
There was underneath there was some other thing under that one. Like, I don't even want to look at it, because it just gives me anxiety to look at it. But the main thing, like you said, is if we can't like get the Lyme out of us, which I think it is like infiltrated me too far gone at this point to like say I'm ever gonna like have it out.
Ciara, I'm gonna interrupt you here. I had that mindset, and you are wrong. I'm sorry, you are wrong. I don't know what the answer is for you specifically, but trust me when I tell you, you will be able to find a series of things that get you in a place where you're like, oh my goodness, I feel really good. Yeah. And you got to believe that.
We really should talk with Ciara during our last 10 minutes together about some of the observations we've been able to make after interviewing 600 people with Lyme disease and some of the leading researchers and doctors. And, as we begin to wind down, let us share some of these observations with you, so you can have some frameworks that you can use on your healing journey. So the first thing that I want to share with you is that I've come to the conclusion that regaining your health is a 3-step process. It's be, do, and have, right? And I think one of the things that's really exciting about doing this interview with you is you are someone who does believe. You believe in you, and what we need you to do, and which is why Matt is correcting you right away, we need you to believe that you can get better, and you can get better, right? So having the spirit that you have, and having the ability to put everything in a healthy context means that you believe in you, you believe in you believe you're unique and special. You believe that you've been put on this earth to serve other people in a unique and special way, right? So once we have the B piece in place, which is the most difficult part of this, the belief part of this is the most difficult part.
Yep.
Now we can go to the do. Now the question is, what do we do? And what we've learned here at Tick Boot Camp is that it's generally a four-step process that people use in what they're doing to become healthy, right? And the first step in the process, which is where I think your doctors probably didn't serve you well thus far, is what we call prehabilitation. By the way, as a fellow Italian American, there are three Italians on this podcast today. We're not just New Yorkers, but we're all Italians. Our framework is called PARM. And you would expect Italians to have a Parmesan healing framework, right? So the P is prehabilitation, right? Because one of the things we need to recognize is that if we're going to heal from Lyme disease, it is going to be our immune system that's going to win the day, right? And what has happened here with you, and I think everyone else that's become chronically ill, is that your immune system has worn down and it's not functioning well. So what we need to do is we need to look at the prehabilitation phase. Before we get to the A, which is the assist, or we're trying to reduce the microbial load, we have to get our body ready for the fight, right? And so we have to go through this prehabilitation process where we are detoxing. Right? We are eating in a healthy way. We are getting movement. We are working on our sleep, right? Because our immune system is not going to function well if we're not sleeping, if we're not eating well, and we're not moving, right? And once we get those pieces in place, right, and our body is now ready to go to step two, now we can decide what kinds of assistance we're going to give our body with reducing the microbial load. Maybe it's antibiotics. Maybe it's natural antibiotics, but there are protocols that you can use to try to reduce the microbial load. But you don't want to reduce the microbial load and have all this die off in your system, and then your system can't get rid of it, right? Because then you're just going to get sicker and sicker and sicker, right? So after you go from the prehabilitation phase, then you go to the assist phase. Then after that, there's a rehabilitative phase, right? And there's both an emotional and a physiological rehabilitation phase that you have to go through, where you're now retraining your brain because your brain pathways have been altered so that your body can manage this disease, so that you can have as healthy an experience as you have when you're in this disease state. But when you get out of that state, if you don't retrain your brain, then unfortunately you're still going to be symptomatic. You're still going to have a lot of these challenges, right? And then, of course, there is going to be the physiological rehabilitation. And then the last piece of course, is maintenance. You can't go back to living the life you lived before. You can't be the wild child who was able to, go out all night and run around with all the boys and girls and do all the things you were doing, right? You have to have this phase of maintaining your body and have a very healthy life, have a very productive life, and maintain. So that's what we call our PARM framework. And what we see is when people follow that path and they follow it in a healthy way, then they again they go from the B to the do to have control of the works of God's hands, or have control over our body, so that we can now be productive and we can now produce everything we want to produce. So I wanted to share those frameworks with you, with where it is be and you're in a great place, do, and then ultimately you'll have, and then the do piece of this is PARM, where you're going to go through the prehabilitation phase, you're going to go through the assist phase, you're going to go through the maintenance, you're going to go through the rehabilitation phase and the maintenance. So my strong advice to you is to focus on prehabilitation. Get your body healthy again. Get your immune system healthy again. Make sure that your detox pathways are opening up. And in detox, I'm just going to look at we want to make sure that you're physically detoxing. That's going to include movement. You are going to have to move, and walking is a great way of doing that. You're going to have to socially detox. You have to make sure you're not around any energy vampires, because you don't have a lot of energy, right? So you're gonna have to be very selective about who you're interacting with and who you're not interacting with, because you have to be really selfish right now about making sure that you're not around anybody who's sucking energy out of you, right? You want to make sure that you go through an environmental detox, right? You want to be tested for mold and heavy metals. You want to make sure that the place where you're living is not moldy and not causing you to have the challenges that come along with immunosuppressive. You want to make sure that you're emotionally detoxing, right? You want to make sure that you are learning how to make sure your binary brain is serving you, that you're not always in fight or flight, that you learn how to You learn how to self-soothe and keep your brain calm so that you're not in overdrive all the time, because that's really immunosuppressive. And then, of course, you want to go through the spiritual detox, right? Where you recognize that you are created to serve, and you should be focusing on who you should serve and how you're going to serve and what you're going to be doing. And as you're going through that process and that spiritual cleansing, now you're going to be a healthier person, right? So our strong advice to you is to think about the frameworks we've just outlined for you, begin to go through this process of prehabilitation, and then start to look to different places where you can now purchase supplements that will be designed specifically for Lyme disease. The one that we generally recommend folks think about is the Vital Plan, Dr. Rawls's tools. Both Matt and I use them regularly. And we have been for many years. And Matt has become substantially healthier as a result of going through, using, the Vital Plan tools. And then we can talk more. So we strongly urge you to listen to the Tick Boot Camp podcast. We urge you to stay in touch with us and think about the frameworks we've given you as a way of moving forward in overcoming disease. I have every belief that you're going to overcome this challenge. And when you overcome this challenge, you are going to be able to help other people in this community.
Through her Netflix series.
If you know anybody there, give them a call for me. But I'm so happy I found you guys on Instagram, because I started just following everything with the word tick in it, and your content has really helped me. And some of the brands that I've been buying from for supplements to repair this damage, I see you guys follow them, and I'm like, oh, that's good. Like they're following them for a reason. So I feel like better about, because sometimes people put a reel that's like, oh, you have Lyme, like try this, and now Lyme is becoming really in the spotlight with these celebrities coming out with it. So who knows what's going to happen? But
yeah, well,
everything
we know what's going to happen. We know you're going to get better.
Yep. Thank you. I will take every word to heart, and I'm not giving up. So no one else should either.
We know, because you've gotten through the B phase, and now you're going to go to the do phase. And now when you're going to when you go through the do phase, you're going to have control over your body, and that will come. So I have every belief that is going to happen. So before we let you go, you've been wonderful. Do you have any questions for us about anything you're working on, anything we've outlined for you? Is there anything that we can help you with before we let you go?
Oh my God. That's a good question. I have so many questions, but
we're not going to go away, Ciara. We'll be available in the coming days and weeks. It's not like we're going to disappear and ghost you after this, but not to put you on the spot.
No, it's not even on the spot. I guess, like, from all of your interviews and all of the research you've done and your own experiences, like, what is like a absolute must in the medicine cabinet for supplements?
I will tell you mine, because I know what mine are.
I'm going to write them down.
Yep. Well, and it's a variety of things, right? So the two biggest things for me that I still recognize I deal with occasionally and need tools to counter are my nervous system dysregulation, and that's a big one for me. I struggle with that greatly. And I think before I got sick, that was an issue. And then when I became sick, it became even more of an issue where it crippled me, right? So, I use every single day for the last couple of years, I take Dr. Rawls's HPA balance, which is just part of my routine. That's every day, non-negotiable.
Me too.
But that's adaptogens. So they're herbs that basically regulate your nervous system, and they help you become. I watched a little video and a webinar and a little session that he did years ago on this. And the best way to describe it is it helps you feel normal. And I know it's hard to explain that, but really you feel normal. And if you have a sense of anxiety or fear or depression or whatever, or even just like you're amped up and you feel like overdrive, or you just feel like you have no energy, it brings you to that baseline. So if you're down, it brings you up. If you're up, it brings you down, right? It kind of knows how to modulate your nervous system. And sometimes I need extra support because that's not enough, candidly, between work and being able to do more and trying to push myself. So I use a lot of tools beyond that in the nervous system world. One of my favorites is passion flower, and I get it from the UK. We interviewed a lot of the herbalists from UK, and I swear by it. So I have passion flower and ashwagandha concentrated tinctures from, Rich, where are they from? I have right over there. Napiers, Napiers, and we've interviewed several of their herbalists, and those are amazing. If I
Wow.
feel overstimulated, understimulated, just sad, too much, like where I can't sleep, or if I'm
Yeah.
having a really good, if I go out and I push myself and I feel really good, it helps me then bring me down so I can sleep. Otherwise, I don't sleep, and the next day I'm not going off to a good start. So those are huge. So passion flower, ashwagandha are singular ones I take. The HPA balance is wonderful, and then on the inflammation side, that's key, right? So there are days where I will take Advil. And, I know people are like, oh, you take Advil, but there are days where, I'm a little inflamed. I'll take an Advil and it allows me to get through it and not impact this chronic inflammation cycle that I feel I can break that I'll take occasionally. That's something I try to reserve for more severe times. But then I have the turmeric glass bottle. So it's concentrated turmeric, specifically the curcumin part of it. And that is like such a strong anti-inflammatory, and it's a little syringe. You literally just like swallow it and put it into your mouth, and that's an amazing tool. And then when it comes to inflammation, I love CBD as well. Variety of CBD rub, CBD oil. So there's a ton of those, and I can go on and on and on, but I'll stop and let Rich share his favorites.
Yeah, so I would be with Matt. I think the first thing I'd highly recommend is the HPA balance. That was a game changer for me. And I think as part of that, I think you have to study the brain, which you've had some introduction to with your work at Cornell, and understanding the binary brain and understanding the difference between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic expression of your nervous system, and understand, as Matt had said, when you're in dysregulation and what steps you can take to regulate your nervous system and what you can do in the short term and what you can do long term. And I think one of the reasons why the HPA balance works so well, at least for me it did, and it is the most important supplement I take and have ever taken, is because what happens when we're dysregulated for a long period of time is that the HPA axis ultimately causes your cortisol receptors to retard. And what's happening is you have adrenaline teeming through your system all the time, right? And because you have the adrenaline teeming through your system and it's stuck, it's like being, I think one of the best descriptions I had of this is it's analogous to being a diabetic, right? And what's happening with diabetes is that your insulin receptors are now retarded. They're no longer working, and as a result, you're burning out your system. Well, the same thing is happening now with the HPA axis, with all these stress chemicals teeming through your system. So there's two different things you need to do there, because even if you understand the binary nature of your brain, and even though you are beginning to develop tools to help you to regulate your emotions, the problem is that if you haven't modulated your cortisol receptors, which is what the HPA balance does, you're still going to be in fight or flight, and you're still going to be in immunosuppression. So
24/7 fight or flight.
yeah, yes, of course. So my very strong advice to you is buy the HPA balance.
Yep.
Take it twice a day. And now it does take some time though, Ciara. I want you to know that it took me. I stayed with it for many months. I mean, I was getting progressively more regulated, but it wasn't until I was taking it for about 8 months that it really worked for me. And
Wow.
I would never ever stop for the rest of my life. I would never stop. So that's the physiological piece, and then of course learning how to regulate and understand that we're living in a toxic world. That media and social media are designed to dysregulate us. And what happens is when we're in dysregulation all the time, especially because our brain is constantly building up shortcuts, is that we will develop neural pathways that will keep us in dysregulation as well. So part of what we have to learn how to do is we have to learn how to modulate our hormones. And part of what we have to do is we have to learn how to change the neural pathways that are causing us to be dysregulated, right? And there are a lot of tools that you can use to do that, to change these dysregulated neural pathways. And the beauty of having a neurally plastic brain, especially as young as you are, is that you can change that, right? And there are some tools that you can use to change that, which is why we recommend the rehab phase and some of the tools that you can use there, right? So that would be the first thing. The second thing, again, I don't want this to sound like a Vital Plan commercial, but I'm going to give you it anyway, and that's the Restore Kit, and it's a 4-bottle kit that is designed by a person with chronic Lyme disease who used these tools to resolve his challenges, and he's now I think the best herbal provider. And it's again I'm not a paid advocate. I'm in fact somebody who spends money on these kits, right? So
Yeah.
they would be the two fundamentals that I'd recommend that you use. We can talk more about some of the other tools, but I think to start out with, I would focus on rehabilitation. As part of that, I would be taking the HPA balance, and if you can, and to rebuild your immune system and use some of the fundamental tools that you can use to begin to reduce the microbial load, I would recommend the Restore Kit.
I'm really happy I asked that because you can get flooded with so many different things that like, oh, this is 4 stars, or this was seen on this Today Show, and it's like it becomes overwhelming. So when you actually find somebody that even if it took 8 months, that's the thing. People, they want a quick fix. I think I've learned throughout this journey that it is not a quick fix, and you have to just keep at it. Like I'll take a supplement for a month and I'm like, oh, well, I didn't feel anything. And my mom always reminds me, it takes time, like
It
get another
does.
bottle. So it's really important to
Well, I mean, the other thing that we should, I think, learn from your really cool story. I mean, you're very articulate, very smart. You really told a really powerful story. Is it didn't happen overnight, so
yeah.
you can't get better overnight, right? I mean, you went through this whole process of ultimately becoming sick, and now you have to. It evolved into an illness that would have to devolve, out of illness, right? So you have to show yourself grace. I mean, show yourself grace. I'm gonna make one more suggestion, and then I'll let Matt give you any other final thoughts he has. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure you're not getting bitten by ticks anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because what's happened, I think another one of the lessons from your story is it was tick bite, it was tick bite, it was tick bite, right? And what was happening is you're getting more germs spit into you and more germs spit into you and more germs spit into you, and what happens is you're picking up germs all during the course of your life, right? Unrelated to tick bites. You now have these tick bites with these really, really aggressive germs, and they all now start to work together against you. Right now, you now have to be aware of that. You have to be aware of what Lyme disease is. You have to be aware of how it causes you to get sick. You have to understand how it's evolving. And now when you're going through the process of regaining your health and rebuilding your body, you have to check yourself on a regular basis. You have to find ticks before they're attached to you for too long. So, another strong recommendation I have for you is you have to check yourself every day. Now, how we recommend that you do that, Matt and I wrote a book, which we haven't yet published, but we teach how to check for ticks differently than anyone else. And what you do is you actually have to use the median nerve, which is your thumb, your first finger, your second finger, and half of your ring finger. You put your fingers together and you rub your fingertips all along your body twice a day. That is the easiest way, the quickest way of finding a tick. Ticks are very small, they don't move. Our eyes generally will not pick up ticks. It's actually your fingertips. So what you should be doing twice a day is running your fingers over every part of your skin. Before you're going in the shower, before you're wet, do it every day. And then at night before you get into your pajamas, do that. So my 3 steps would be learn how to self-regulate, including using the HPA balance. Begin to rebuild your immune system through the rehabilitation stages, which includes the supplements of the Restore Kit. And the third is check for ticks every single day, twice a day, so that you can find these things on you before they cause you to become sicker than you already are.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I have 2 dogs. They're right here. And every time we go to my mom's, there's ticks all over them.
Of
And
course.
I have like an eagle eye now. Like I could see that tick in a second. My mom's like, "How did you see that?" I'm like, "Because it's in me. I'm like Spider-Man of like the ticks. Like I recognize it right away."
Yeah.
But there's an area of her backyard that you could just step your foot in there and you could come out with like 3 tick. We call it tick land, and it's a no-go zone. No one goes in there, and she sprayed. It doesn't matter. It's so bad. So I agree with checking yourself. It's hard when you have hair. But I'm constantly running my fingers. Like, I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah. But you use your fingers, use your fingertips. Yeah. I mean, Matt and I don't have that problem because we don't
Nope.
have hair, but I
that's
would,
great.
I
Like,
would, I would relish that problem. I wish I'd have nice hair like you do.
it's not good for tick binding, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. So Sarah, you've been really a pleasure to interview, and please stay in touch with us. Let us know how you're
Yeah.
progressing, and as you continue to heal on this journey, please stay in touch with us because we'd really like to have you back so that you can now share some of your healing lessons with the folks that are following us on the various social media platforms, on our podcast platforms, and now on YouTube.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to that point where I'm back, and I have, the thing that worked for me. So it's only been a year, and yeah, we'll talk to
All
you soon.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure.